Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. We're here today to talk about the 4.30 release of the ArcGIS Maps SDK for JavaScript. Please let us know where you're joining us from today in the chat. I see we have people coming from Spain, Canada, Virginia, Seattle, and us on the call here, we're from all over the world, people from California, North Carolina, Illinois, Zurich. So while we're waiting for people to join, we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves. And we'll say, how about everyone answers the question, what is your favorite summer activity? So my name is Anne Fitz. I'm a product engineer working on the JavaScript SDK, and my favorite summer activity is hiking. This past weekend, I went hiking in Yosemite, and it was awesome. I'll pass it over to Julie.
Hey everybody, I'm Julie Powell, and I'm a principal product manager for our web development technologies. So I work on the JavaScript SDK and Calcite design system. And I think my favorite activity is similar to Anne's, camping, any kind of camping. So good morning, good evening.
All right, Noah, you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, I'm Noah Sager. I'm a product engineer on the JavaScript team. Hopefully you can hear me okay. My favorite summer activity is reading. So with that, I'll hand it off.
All right, how about Androl next?
Hi, my name is Androl Patsuk, and I'm a product engineer on the JavaScript API team. And my favorite summer activity is also similar to Anne and Julie's. I'd like to go hiking and do a lot of traveling.
Nice. Emily?
Hi everyone, I'm Yishuan Hu, also you can call me Emily. I'm the product manager for web development technologies. I really like paddle boarding in the summer, and the best part is throwing myself into the water.
I love that. All right, Heather?
Hey everyone, I'm Heather Gonzago. I'm in North Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina, and product engineer for the JavaScript SDK team. Summertime activity, besides try not to swelter in this heat, is probably gardening. I like not vegetables because they'll die, but like hummingbirds and butterflies. I like my flowers. So that's what I'll do.
Nice. All right, and then next up we'll do Hugo.
Hi, I'm Hugo. I'm joining from Zurich. I'm originally from Portugal. I work with David, who you're going to meet next. In the summer, I love to go cycling, although most of the time I cycle indoors now because this summer hasn't happened yet in Switzerland. But yeah, when the weather is good, I go outside in the mountains and try to get up them as fast as I can.
Nice. All right, last but not least, David?
Yes, hello, I'm David. I'm also a software engineer in the Zurich team. And yeah, my favorite summer activity is enjoying late summer nights. And this kind of contains maybe doing some swimming in the lake or having a drink, or watching some concert or something. Yeah, but then everything happening in late nights. Yes.
I love that. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for introducing yourselves. And thank you for those of you in the chat who shared where you're coming from. It's great to see we have such a global audience here. And thank you for spending the time with us. So the way this is going to work is we're going to go through and each highlight some of our favorite features from the 4.30 release. While we're demoing, feel free to add questions in the chat. Let us know what you think of the new features. We're going to be watching and monitoring the chat the whole time. So definitely, we want to interact with you. Please let us know what you think. And with that, I'll hand it over to our first presenter, which is Julie.
All right, thanks, Anne. I'll share my screen. All right. Okay, so I think one of the most important aspects of our last release is that we now have the components that are part of the JavaScript Maps SDK out of beta, specifically the map components and the coding components. Chart components are still in beta, So if you're not familiar with these yet, it's definitely something to start checking out. These are web components for building applications, and it is the recommended way for you to be building your UI experience. So it's definitely something that you'll want to check out. So now that they're out of beta, we have integrated them throughout the SDK site. For example, in the getting started, you'll see them mentioned throughout the different topics, like how you reference them in the CDN. We have new topics covering integration with frameworks. So for example, React, how you get started, work with React, and working with the components. Working with components and the frameworks makes it incredibly easy. They're framework agnostic, so it's a great way if you're using React or Angular or any framework of your choice to start building applications. So another place you want to check out is the programming patterns. Myself, I've been playing around with the components quite a bit since we first released them in beta, and I still come up against differences in how you work with, for example, widgets, and then moving over to working with custom elements. There's different things to be aware of. So this is a really great guide on how to start using components and what things you're familiar with and building in the past with widgets, how what that looks like when you're using web components. So check out the programming patterns. Another area you'll notice that has changed is the references section. Here you have the API reference. This is the core API. So if you're building the imperative approach for using the API, that's still 100% supported. You can take that route. And you'll find all of the reference just as you knew it before under this API reference. But the map components reference, this is going to take you to a storybook where you can see how you can use in each of the individual components in the SDK. So this is the map components. I can have a look at any one that I'm interested in, for example, the elevation profile, see how it works, and then show the code for how I add that component to my app. I can change different aspects, for example, the position to top left or bottom right, and you see the code little snippet updating as I move that that component around. So it's like a live preview of the component. And of course, you have the documentation for each of those components. So I'm going to do a quick demo for just in case some of you have not been exposed to these components in the past. And a great way to start playing around with it is by using one of the tutorials. So here we have a couple tutorials that we're leading off using components. We still have the other tutorials that were there before, but you can start using these for playing around with components. So this particular one is loading a map and a legend, and you can see here there's information that's coming from the web map loaded, and it's using Calcite for the layout. So I'm just going to go ahead and open that in a CodePen. And you can see here on the left, maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger. Here we have the map, and it's referencing a particular web map. So I can change that. And as you can see, several of us that work on the JavaScript SDK love hiking and camping and everything. So I've picked out a map with some trails. So now it's going to load that map instead, and it still pulls out the portal information, portal item information about that map. So I can do other things like we saw in the component API example, just by changing the position of a legend and see not updating the code. I can add a new element like the ArcGIS elevation profile. And you always want to put a closing tag for custom elements. That's something that I learned right before the demo or got reminded of. So this is a 2D map. It does look like 3D, but it's 2D, and I just have a hillshade burned into the base map using blending, which makes it kind of look 3D. But because it's 2D, I do need to add a ground property there. So it's world elevation, so it knows how to get the elevation data for the elevation profile widget. So if I go ahead and select a trail, then it should show my elevation profile. So one thing you'll start to notice is that, I'm adding a bunch of widgets on here. That's really easy, but you start to get crowded and you're going to start thinking about layout. And so because this is using Calcite, I can use the Calcite layout capabilities to better position, different controls that I want to put, or UI experiences, into my application. So this is that same example, and in this case, I just added a Calcite panel, which is this thing here. I added a block, and then here, notice that I have the legend and the ArcGIS profile component. The main things I notice here is that I have to use this reference element to reference the map, because notice it's not on top of the map. I'm not defining it within this map component. So when you're defining it outside, you have to let it know which map it's going to be using. So give a reference to the map. Okay, so that's a very, very simple example. I just wanted to point out one more thing. If you're interested, yeah? Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt. We have a question in the chat. Are there any plans to make view components?
View components? I'm not sure if I understand what that means. Does someone else on their call know what that they're asking? Is that maybe that's for positioning?
I do. I can answer. You should be able to use these components with Vue. Like they're referring, I think, to Vue.js, which is a JavaScript framework. And these are web components, and they should be usable in any framework, including React, starting from the latest version that supports them. So they should just work just fine with Vue.js as well.
Thanks, Hugo. I was thinking map view. I was like, what kind of map view component?
Sorry, no, VUE.
Okay, I wasn't looking at the chat. Okay, so I just wanted to show one more thing. And if you're using Calcite with the components, there's a great new tutorial you can check out. And that's this one. So it's how you can build the mapping up with Calcite and web components. So we have various samples and tutorials that are combining Calcite with the components. You don't have to use Calcite, but it is a great way to put together your user experience. Okay, and with that, I will hand it off to Heather.
Awesome. Thank you, Julie. All right, let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. All righty. Okay, cool. So we're just taking a look here. Again, my name is Heather Gonzago. I primarily work with widgets within the SDK. I'm going to focus here specifically on the feature table. For those of you who may have already taken a look through the release notes, you might have noticed that there is a ton of updates for the feature table. It was really, really heavy with the amount of work that we did to it for this particular release. I have a little bit of time to talk about a lot of different things. So briefly, I just wanted to show you what we're going to discuss here it's all within the release notes. The samples that I'm going to be showing you are here within the release notes. In addition to that, I'm going to show you the samples, but I also wanted to point out that within the feature table API reference as well, we also updated the just the content in general. So we beefed it up. There's more information specific to certain functionality, like selecting, filtering, editing, working with relationship data, and so forth. So hopefully if I don't cover everything here, if you've got specific questions, it will be answered, or you can take a look here within the API reference, and that can give you some help as well. So first things first, I'm sure some of you have been patiently waiting for having that relationship support within the feature table, similar to pop-ups and similar to what we have within the feature form. Like if you do editing, we now have that within the feature table. So I'm going to go ahead and show you quickly. We have a sample that I'm going to touch upon, feature table with related records. I'm not going to go into all of the details here within the description and so forth. You can read that, but I will show you the sample itself. So just blown up, made larger on my screen. What we have here is a web map that has a layer that's related to two tables. So within this hydrants layer, I have a relationship set on this to inspections and an inspections table. And then that inspections table has a relationship set on it to violations as well. So within this web map that I'm using, I have this relationship established, and I have all of the data that is within this relationship that I want to work with is added to this map. That's important to note as well. So make sure that you have all that data within your map. And the only other thing that you need to do is set the, there's a specific property that we added at 4:30 related, basically allowing you to enable the related relationship support. And I'll show you that in a moment. So I set that to true, and the table automatically knows, picks it on up, and we can see that now within this inspection column, this relationship column. So if we take a quick look at this, I'm going to go ahead and just click on this fire hydrant. You'll notice here, and I wrote this application as well, that we have this additional property that will allow you to filter and only show specific features that are selected at that time. So I have it showing only this one particular feature. And what you'll notice here is I have one related inspection to that fire hydrant. If I click on that, you'll notice here now, automatically, I want to show you all the fields that I have associated with that. You'll see here, in addition to that, I also have this violations inspection as well that I can go and click in, and so forth. You can get in. I mean, it's really just limited to the real estate that you have on your screen. You'll notice as well is if I go back in here, and you can easily navigate it. So going back and forth, if you need to get back up to your parent, you'll notice that. I'm going to go ahead and, one other thing I want to show you here, almost forgot. You can edit that. So it's not just displaying, it's also editing. So if I want to go in here based upon your editing permissions, if you have editing set on that, you can go in and edit within the feature table as well. All righty. All right, so
Quick
that's
question.
the relates. Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
Can the relationships be created using dynamically created client-side layers?
Oh my goodness. So you're talking about, no, sorry. So no, you would have to have that relationship needs to be established within. So basically we're pooling the relationship. So what I showed you earlier here within the feature layer, we're pulling that relationship information directly from that layer itself. So that information needs to be recognizable within the layer and stored within that map. Very similar to how, if you've ever worked with it within the pop-ups or within the editor, it's going to be the same premise as well. The only major difference, and I'm glad I almost forgot to mention this, is that the only major difference when working with the relationships with the feature table is that if you work with a pop-up or you work with the editor, like within the form, you have to have the relationship element or a relationship, like a pop-up element established or created in order for it to recognize it and bring it on up and display it. The way the feature table works currently is that you only have to set that property to true and as long as that data has that relationship established and those layers are loaded, it will pick it up. That's the only thing. So you don't have to create like a separate template with these relationship columns and bring it on in. Not currently right now. So it's pretty much just, this is what it is. You add that property and it brings it on up.
Great. Thanks.
Any other? Okay.
That's it.
Okay. All right, so that's the relationships. I also wanted to show you a couple other things while I have this sample open as well. You may have noticed that we have, you see this key icon. That's a new thing. We've added an icon property within the headers so that you can go ahead and specify, in this case, I just specified a calcite icon for the key to indicate, hey, this is my key field. I have it locked down. I don't want to mess up my relationship, so you're not going to be able to go in and edit that. One other thing here. Oh, and in addition to that, there is also additional properties on our columns, and I'm going to show you this in a moment here, that allows you to configure the width. So like auto width, if you want to set an actual width size, you can do that now as well. That helps with performance, responsiveness, and so forth. So without going into the weeds on all of this, just want to quickly show you this in the related records. So this is that sample. So I know it's a lot of stuff we're going into here.
Sorry to interrupt, but we
Yeah.
can't see the code that you're showing.
Oh my goodness. Okay, that's okay. I'll just show you in the sample itself here.
Okay.
That's fine. We can do it this way. Yeah, I was trying to be fancy and put it into a different one so I can show, make it larger and show everything. So that's okay. So what we have here, if you take a look, we have, yeah, all right. So what you would have noticed here is if I click in here, notice how my title is getting updated. If I click zoom out, it's getting updated. That's because we've also added an additional property on the title and the description for the table that allows you to dynamically generate that content based upon a function that you specify. So in this case, all I'm doing here is I'm basically just checking to see the selection count based on the total within that extent. So it automatically will then go ahead and update that. This is the ones that I wanted to take note of. So that related records enabled, this is that property that you need to specify to true in order for that, that relationship information to display properly. We also have, this is that icon that I was talking about. So if we want to specify an icon for that field, and then, yeah, in addition to that, I'm setting the auto width to true to have the table automatically calculate the width that is needed for these columns to show correctly, just for performance sake, responsiveness, I should say. All right, and I believe that's all I want to show for that one because I have a few other things here and I'm running low on time and I don't want to take it into other people's. So, all righty, next thing we have is the virtual columns. So basically what that means is we are now allowing you to work and create columns for your feature table that aren't directly tied to the layer itself that you're working with or shown within that table, which is huge. This really allows you to, it adds a lot more to what you can actually do within your table. So again, I'm going to show you this sample. We have this feature table with custom content. If we go in, and actually, I am going to show you a little bit on the description here because this kind of describes each of these individual fields, what type of field it is that you have, and what type of content is within them. So when a reason why you may want to have a virtual field is maybe you've got some dynamic content you want to, something that you're creating or doing calculations based on other fields within your table, but you don't want to create a brand new field for that information. You can do this virtually. So what we have here is we've created this table that has these virtual. So we've got these columns. So we have a field column and a column. The ones that are referenced as just column, these are the virtual fields that we have. So these are not directly tied to a field within the layer itself. So if we take a look at it, you'll notice here that we have a few of these. So this enrollment capacity, this calculate expression, and then in addition to that, this ratio of student to employees, these are custom virtual columns. What we've done then, in addition to that, is we've also generated dynamic content within these columns. So this is another huge thing that you can now do within the feature table is you can dynamically generate custom content for whatever cells it are that cells it is that you're working in using this. We have a new format function that you can pass and work with. And I'll show you in just a moment here. So basically what we have is in this enrollment capacity, we are working with a CalSite progress component and adding that within the this custom virtual field. We're creating a CalSite action here that will calculate an arcade expression based upon whatever we set within this, and then goes in, and we can, based upon specific logic that we have set within that, it'll go in and we can set that within this custom field. We have, this is just an actual field, a website field itself, but we're using a CalSite component, a link component that will go in and open up that school's website. And then
Awesome.
lastly,
Heather,
Yep,
sorry,
yep.
I'm just going to
No, 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 no,
interrupt. There's a question in the chat about with the button menu deprecated, do you have any good samples using table menu config to add a custom action?
Are they talking about the custom actions here? And I didn't get to this part yet, but these are actions that you can work with as well within the feature table. So that might be
Okay,
something.
great. Yeah.
But yeah, we can talk a little bit about that as well.
Let's
The
just,
button.
sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
I think
No,
that
that's
we got to
fine.
pass it on to the next presenter.
I know. And
we
that's
could
why
do a
there's so
whole
much.
live stream just
We could do a
for
whole
all
thing
of the
for
feature table updates because there's so much.
And I was trying
but-
to like be condensing everything here. So I'm gonna cut this super short, but I primarily want to show you all. This is the main thing to keep in mind here. We've got our custom virtual fields. We have the normal fields. You can create your dynamic content using the format function. All of that, again, is within the sample. And again, it's all commented. Everything is within the descriptions. And then lastly, and I'm not going to go into it in detail, but this is probably one of my favorite parts, is we have we've added more events to the actual cell content. So when you're clicking in cells, hovering over cells, you can listen for that. So we now have the ability you can select, well, we've always had highlight IDs that helps with selections, but you have the ability to highlight. So there's a row highlight IDs property, which will allow you to highlight, not select. So you'll notice here, really
Heather,
quickly.
I'm so sorry.
You're cutting me off. That's fine.
I think we need to move on for the sake of time. All of these samples are mentioned in the release notes, so please check them out. And thank you so much, Heather.
Yeah,
Next, we're
you're
going to
fine.
pass
Sorry
it
about
over
that.
to David to talk about some of the 3D updates.
Yes, awesome. It was great. Awesome. Cool to see this stuff. So I'm going to talk a bit about the 3D changes or like news. We have this 4.3, and let's start with the orientation of labels in vector tile layers for the SceneView, so the 3D view basically. And here you see a small app at the top. This is from the previous release, and now 4.3 in the bottom, 4.30, and that's basically the update. And you will see once I start rotating the map, you will see that in the top before, you basically wouldn't change the orientation of the label. So this would cause, for example, road names to be kind of upside down, and like point labels here, like here with the lake, wouldn't kind of rotate. And now in the bottom, you see that the labels are updated, which helps really a lot to the readability of the map. And here the city, the street names, they kind of for those labels which are aligned with lines, they kind of just flip the orientation, and that's a nice improvement. And generally, labeling is really a very important topic for us, and we have much more changes on the 3D side as well, which we want to add. We are keep working on the labels, and we're going to improve it over time more and more. And this is just one minor step into this direction. The next topic I want to talk about is time awareness, which we now added to the 3D object scene layer, the 3D point scene layer, or the just point scene layer, and the voxel layer. So just a recap, time info, the time aware layers are basically layers where features have a time extent. And this is enabled by adding a time info property on the layer, which tells our system basically which property of the feature is telling us about the start time and the end time, and then the extent of the time span. And this is basically, this has been working for feature layers for a while, but now this also came to the 3D object scene layer, which has the benefit of using all the 3D object scene layer capabilities like the i3s, rendering optimization, and all these things. And here is the scene we have in the samples, where you basically have a 3D object scene layer which has time awareness. So the features all have a start and end date property, and then we basically use filtering by setting the extent on the view, the time extent. So to us, the time extent is just a different dimension than 3D, like X, Y, Z, and now we have also time. So you have a spatial extent, and now you also in the view have a time extent, and this is being controlled with the time slider widget. I'm not going to talk in detail about this. This has been around, and we basically now can use the features in the 3D object scene layer which have time information, and here we basically show a scenario where you have current existing buildings, and once you basically increase the time extent on the view by using the time slider, you can basically see planned updates. You can basically associate features with time and use those to visualize this. And this is now for 3D object scene layer where you have faster rendering because we have this acceleration for i3s, and that's that, and also has been added it's been now added to the VoxelLayer, which is interesting. VoxelLayer is basically this layer where you can visualize voxel data sets, kind of scientific data sets, where you have information over a spatial domain, and this now also has time awareness, and so you can basically select time features and can basically visualize features depending on the time. So here, basically, we have different timestamps coming from the data set, and going through them, we see the different measurements. And that's for the VoxelLayer.
David, just a couple questions coming in on time.
Yes. Okay.
So the first question is for time slider, I assume. Is there an attribute that will allow it to see it to be centered versus left justified or right justified, that rather than always in the center?
The time slider widget is a widget just like any other widget, so you can place it using basically the same approaches you would use for other widgets. Or is the question related to specific elements within the time slider widget?
I think that was the question.
Interesting. So
he meant the labels. I think.
The labels. Okay. This was related to the label to the label thing I showed.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah. So here, the labels come with the vector tile layer. So that depends on how you configure the vector tile layer data, and so you wouldn't be able to change the display or the label properties after you created the vector tile layer. So we just read the data and basically use the vector data to visualize it. So there's no way to go in and change label properties like that. Yeah.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, and just quick note: if you don't have time-aware features and you don't have a time-aware layer, there's still a way to use layer visualization with time, and we will talk about later. We'll talk about this later in the program today. So, and the last point, big one for us as well: SceneLayer editing. SceneLayer editing, just as a recap, is basically this idea that you have a 3D object scene layer and you are able to basically upload your own models and basically edit the models. So here I basically took a GLB file, which is like a very popular file format, and I can place it, and I can basically place it in the scene. And this basically is the capability of scene layer editing, where you now can also edit scene layers. And this has been in beta for a few releases now, and now we are at the point where everything is stable enough and we are happy with the service, with the quality of the feature, that we say it's not beta anymore. So customers can now really rely on the feature to be functional. And with our out of beta, we also added certain utility functions. I want to just mention quickly before I'm done the convert vertex space function, because once you work with SceneLayer editing and you upload your models, you really need to be aware of your georeferencing of the models. And this is something where we also want to improve in documentation in the future. But just as a recap here for everybody, so if you upload models, then you have to be aware if your model, if the model vertices, the points comprising the model, if they are map space coordinates, which we call georeferenced, or if they are just like 3D coordinates coming out of a common standard 3D tool, like for example SketchUp or something, then this is what we call mesh local vertex space. And this is very important for georeferencing if you want to use this in a a system of records scenario, then this is something people have to be aware. And we added some functions like you can convert between the vertex spaces to allow very advanced workflows around this. And this kind of concludes my section. Sorry if I ran a bit too late. And Hugo, you are next. Looking
All
forward
good.
to
Before we pass it to Hugo, there are a couple of questions that I just want to get answered. The first is regarding time slider. They're wondering if they don't have data for a particular timestamp, is there any way they can avoid showing it in the time slider? And Andrel might be able to answer this too if you don't have the answer off the top of your head.
So I would say filtering. So for us time awareness is filtering basically. So features have now more information, which is also time information, and we filter according to the information. So if your features don't have time, if you have time-aware layer and there's features which don't have information but they show up, then you can use filtering to kind of make sure these are not shown. I think that's a good solution. But maybe Andrel has other ideas.
Andrel here. If I understand the question, I think maybe the user is saying just not to show that month on the time slider. And off the top of my head, I can give you one solution, which is to set the stops property of the time slider to an array of dates, so that you're only showing the dates that you for sure have values for.
Great. Thanks, Andrel. Thanks, David. And then one more question for you, David, or I guess, I don't know if this is for you, but they loved that label that you showed in the upload model and are asking when it can come to 2D. So maybe that's something for us to just keep note of.
So important. This is not a label. So yeah, this is a 3D object. Yeah. So this is a 3D. Yeah, basically. Yeah. Okay.
So it won't be coming to 2D. Is the answer.
It's not a label. Yeah.
All right. Cool. Thank you. Over to Hugo next.
All right. So let me share my screen here. Okay, this one. And I will hide myself so that you can see the content. Okay, so the first thing I want to show is what we call editing constraints. And this has been in the API for a little bit, but that is things like this. You can start drawing here a little wall, and you can say, okay, this wall has to be 15 meters, and it will lock the wall to 15 meters. Then you can set a direction or an elevation. But what we did this path release, which is new, is that you can now also do this precise georeferencing or editing when you're updating features. So in this case, I already have a feature, and I can select a vertex, for example, and I can go in here and I could set the elevation of that vertex to like 50 meters. And I can move it, and you can see that the tooltip there updates live as I'm moving things around, and I can go in at any point and just modify these values. So one thing that allows is, and building also on top of what David showed earlier with the SceneLayer editing, is I can do things like this. I can upload this model. And now I place it here, and this is not really well georeferenced yet. I have a MediaLayer under here. It has some information, which I also have here on the corner. And what I can do now is I can go into input mode by pressing tab. I have all the values here. I could type them in, but since I have them here, what I can do is I can just go here, copy them, and then paste them, and then my model has been placed there. I also know that the elevation is 2.8 meters, so I can go and put that in. 2.8, and I know that my orientation is this one, so I can go in here and I can set the orientation as well, and now my model is fully georeferenced, and I could move it, and then I would change it, but now I am able to position it very precisely using coordinates, using elevation, using orientation. So this is really big, and we're going to continue improving this. We're going to add more tooltips for pretty much everything that you see in the API that is interactive. We would like to have tooltips and being able to precisely set positions, angles, and all that kind of stuff. So this is an ongoing work that we're going to continue doing. So since I mentioned earlier, this here is a media layer, right? It's an image that is placed in here. And one thing you can do now with the latest release is that you can position it interactively. So here I have another media layer, and I can move it around. I can also use control points. So I can select this one, and I select this corner. I can go over here, and I select that corner. And I can go over to this side, and I can select this corner. And when I have all my corners aligned, and you see that they snap to, and now when I have all my corners aligned, you see that the image is or the media layer is fully georeferenced as well, and it aligns here, the road, and everything just fits perfectly. So this is really easy to do. Like, you just get the layer view for the media layer, and then you can make it interactive, and you get this interactive experience. And then finally, something that people have mentioned already in the chat earlier is viewshed. It was indeed an image of a viewshed that we had in the intro. And here we have a scene with some 3D tiles data. And what I can do is I can also interactively place an observer, and then I can create a viewshed. So let's do it over here. And now I can move this observer up and down, or I can just move it around here. I can also like rotate it. And this is all like interactive, all dynamic. So I can also I could even make it a dome if I want. I could go all the way around. I can also control over here. So this is something that is really powerful. And it's now possible. Many people have asked for this. We used to have only the line of sight, and people would place many line of sight points, and now you can actually just do one viewshed analysis, and it just integrates really well, as you can see here, with 3D tiles data, but it integrates with any sort of data you might have. This will work just fine. And you have here also the API. This is how you would create your viewshed, and you can also do the set up your observer, the distance you wanna use, the heading, tilt, and so on and so forth. So yeah, these are the things I wanted to show. I will now pass it on to Andro, unless there are any questions that I need to answer.
There are just one question, and also we got some love in the chat for viewshed, so people are really excited about that feature. But in your first demo, the question was, can I change the height of the wall?
The height of the wall, right? So here, not in this demo, because these are not real. Oh, here, sorry, this is the wall that we were mentioning. But no, this is
screen anymore. But yeah.
Oh, I'm not? Okay. But I'll just, okay, cool. So I'll just bring my camera back. So yeah, so like you could, but this is a symbol. So the demo I showed, it's not a real like 3D geometry. All you're editing is a line or a polyline, and then it has a symbol which represents that line. So you would be able to, like, you would have to modify the height of the symbol, not the height of, like, the line doesn't really have a height. So yeah, so in this particular demo, no.
Sounds good. And then one more question just came in. With the new 3D editing and creation capabilities, is there a way to export an SLPK via the JavaScript API?
That's a good question. I don't think so, but maybe David has more details. I think at the moment you cannot.
Okay, we can also follow up in the chat too.
Yeah.
With that question. Cool. Thank you, Hugo. Great demos.
Thank you.
Next, we'll pass it over to Andro.
Hey, can everyone hear me and see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I'm going to follow Hugo's suit. Just going to turn off my video so that you see the whole application itself. So I'm here today to talk about catalog layer and visibility time extent. So I'm going to start with the catalog layer. So the new catalog layer allows organizations and teams to gather and organize their GIS data in one central location so that users can search and locate the data they need in a 2D map view and also in a 3D scene view. So you can create the catalog layers and organize your data maybe based on the geographic regions or specific topics or based on specific projects. Okay? And you're able to add different types of services to catalog layer. For example, you can add scene service, feature service, map, and imagery services, to mention a few. So let's take a look at one of the two samples we've added for CatalogLayer at 4.30. So on this application here, you can see those purple rectangles over Cleveland, Ohio, Pittsburgh, and Toronto, Canada areas. So, but just looking at the data itself, you can already tell that you can expect to find different data in those three different areas. So in this specific example here, the CatalogLayer references map services that shows the historic sunburn fire insurance maps as early as 1795. And then also this CatalogLayer also contains neighborhood and parcels feature services for those three different regions. Now, if you take a look at on the left-hand side, you see the contents of the CatalogLayer in a layer list, and layer list has been updated to show the contents of the CatalogLayer. So you can see there are two sublayers within the CatalogLayer, two main sublayers, footprints layer, and then this layers in view happens to be a dynamic group layer. So the footprints are the purple rectangles on the map. You can turn the visibility on and off. And every time you add a layer or a service to your CatalogLayer, footprint layer adds a extent or footprint for that layer or the service you've added to the CatalogLayer. And then as you can see here, this gives you a quick visual representation where users may find the data. Now, if you take a look at the layers in view, you can see there's also sublayers. So as I zoom in, zoom out, or pan on the map, the contents of the dynamic group layer is changing to reflect what's visible on the map. By default, the dynamic group layer displays 10 subgroups at a time, which can be changed at any given time in the application. So also, CatalogLayer may look like a group layer at first glance, but it is backed up by a feature service and has all the capabilities of feature service. So for example, your users will be able to filter the data based on the attributes of the CatalogLayer, or also if it is time enabled, you can enable time, and then you will be able to find the data that's available for a specific time period, for example.
Andrew, quick question. Can everyone use the CatalogLayer in 3D?
Yes. So CatalogLayer is supported both in 3D SceneView and 2D map view. So easy to create a CatalogLayer added to the map. All you need to do is create a new instance of the CatalogLayer, either set the URL property of the CatalogLayer to point to your feature service, or set the portal item ID and just add it to the map. Okay. So next I want to talk about visibilityTimeExtent. So this property was added on all layer types at 4.30, and it allows you to specify a fixed time extent during which layer will be visible on the map. And this property can be used to configure a layer that doesn't have any time awareness or time data, but you still can set this visibilityTimeExtent property. So once it's configured, time slider will only display the layer when the visibilityTimeExtent falls within that current time extent of the view or the time slider. So the examples of this, so it can be useful if, for example, if you have aerial imageries from different seasons showing the variation in the vegetation, you can set visibilityTimeExtent on all of those. Let's say they are tile layers. You can set visibilityTimeExtent on all of those time layers and use the time slider to show the vegetation change over time. So in this example here, this is a new sample also showing a Kincaid fire perimeter that happened in 2019 in Sonoma County. It burned for 14 days. So the application itself has changed, showing how this fire spread from day to day. And on top of that, you can also see that we are also displaying additional information explaining what happened on that given day. So the Kincaid fire perimeter itself is a feature layer, but the textual information you're seeing here is a graphics layer showing all this additional information. So let's take a look at how this is being done. So here, once the Kincaid 5 layer is loaded, we're querying all the features from this featured layer, and we're ordering the query results by the recorded date field, so that the first date of the fire is the first item in our array, and then the last day of the date of the fire is the last item in our array. Then we loop through the results of our query, and we're creating a new date field from this recorded date field. Then also we're reading the nodes value from the nodes attributes, storing it in this nodes variable. Then we're creating a new graphic. Then we are setting a new text symbol and setting the text property of the text symbol to that nodes that's coming from the Kincaid Fire feature service, which happens to be all this textual information you see on the map. Then we are creating a new graphics layer, calling this create graphics layer function, passing in our new date. So let's setting the visibility time extent to match the recorded date of the Kincaid file for that particular day. Okay, so in this case, the start and end dates are the same because we are just showing the Kincaid file at the specific given time. And then we just add the graphics layers to the map, and we don't have to do anything else. The API basically takes care of the rest of it. So I think that concludes my section, and now I'm handing it off to Noah to talk about printing and labeling enhancements.
Awesome. Thank you, Andro. All right, I think you can all see my screen. So again, my name is Noah, and I'm going to be talking about some labeling and some printing enhancements for 4.30. The first thing I want to start off with is the labeling enhancements. The first thing we did here is we added 2 additional label placement options for polyline labels in 2D using a feature layer. So previously we had the center along placement, which is the label you see here in black. And we added above along and below along label positions, so the blue and the green, and they'll follow the natural curve of the polyline, and they can also be offset as well. The second enhancement we did for labeling is opening pop-ups by clicking on the label. Now, this might not sound like the biggest deal, but I want to walk you through a real-life scenario that actually happened to me once. So I was working with this map, and I had a bunch of features, but they were real small points. And if I was trying to get this pop-up here under the immediate parent group to open, and I assure you, I'm clicking, it's hard to get exactly on the pop-up just because it's a little small. And there I finally got it. So this is at 429. At 430, what we did was we made it so that you can actually click anywhere on the label, including the background, and the pop-up will open and it'll give you that little caret indicator showing you exactly where you clicked on the pop-up. So I can click over here or around in here, and we see we have that exact same feature is being highlighted, proving that we opened the same pop-up as we saw at 429. So that's a really nice convenience feature that a lot of customers have been asking for, and we're really excited to share that at 430. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is printing, which is a very exciting topic to me, both personally and professionally. So what we did at 429, we made a huge update to allow people to print from a custom layout template without having to republish your print service. So if you're unfamiliar, if you have these custom layouts that you want your print job to be printed in, if you want to add a new layout or if you want to change an existing layout, you actually have to stop your print service, make your change, and then republish the entire thing. So that can be quite a workflow, especially if you're not in charge of your ArcGIS administration or your services. You have to ask someone else in your organization to accomplish that work. So it's helpful if you can actually make a change to a template or add a new template without having to republish the service. So at 429, we made that change for enterprise-only customers. But at 4.30 in beta, we're allowing people with ArcGIS Online to actually use their own templates without having to republish a print service or even publish a print service to start. So right now it's in beta. It's only available for users with a professional or professional plus level. But with that, it's currently free, and you can use the ArcGIS Online print service that we maintain. It's a different print service than what you've seen before. But while it's in beta, it doesn't consume credits, and you can actually use templates that you upload to your organization as long as they're part of a group, and you can print them today. So I'll walk you through that a bit so you can actually see it in action. So the first thing, this is just a print widget sample. I just want to show you that we're working with the basic thing without any code. And so I'm going to walk you through some of the changes. So the first thing to see here is the UI. We're used to seeing, this is at 429, we're used to seeing layout and map only, but now at 430, we have layout, we have map only, and we have exports. So priorly, you were used to seeing exported be at the bottom of the print widget, and now they're going to be in a separate tab. And oh, I have some work here from earlier. I'm just going to delete that because we have the ability to delete exported files, which is pretty cool. So I'll come down here and you notice the template button looks different. This is where all the layouts will be hosted. I can click this and I'll get a nice drop down and it shows me all the different layouts I have available, and it even shows me the size. If you look closely, you can actually see it has the dimensions. So this is a helpful little indicator to show you which template you're actually going to choose. And we do have more exciting enhancements planned for this down the road. All right, so the last thing I want to show you here is a very longly requested feature called Show Print Area. So if I click that, this little blue dotted line, this is actually going to show you the area that's going to be printed. This is the exact extent. So I know if I want this little feature in Birmingham, I can just drag that around and boom, I've got that feature will be in the printout. And if I change my template, oh, it dynamically updates on the fly with me. So I know exactly what I'm looking for. But if I'm not doing that, if I want to use my scale and I want to preserve the same scale, I can actually come in here and I can bump it up or make it smaller depending on how I want to change it. And it changes in real time. So I'll always know the exact extent that I'm going to print, and I'll know exactly what features will be included in the printout and what will get cut off. All right, but now we want to go one step further and show you something super exciting, and that's the custom templates. So this is a custom application, and before, when we hit the template button, let's just prove it, we saw our normal list of templates. This is coming from the print service. These are the same templates you're used to seeing. But now when I come to this application, let's show the print area, and I'll click templates. I get a new section called organization templates in beta. And below that, I see the default templates. These are the ones we're used to seeing by default from the print service. But I can use these new ones. These are templates associated with the group that I'm a part of in my ArcGIS Online organization. And I could use one of these new ones and get something a little different that people aren't used to seeing. So I could select the blue template or the Teams template and close that. And you'll notice something else up here. The title's gone. Something changed. No, that's not a bug. That's actually the intelligence of the print widget. It can read some of the available options. And if the map title is not an option, it doesn't display the box. And we come down to advanced options. We have the same ability here with legend and north arrow. If these are not associated with the print template, the options will not appear. Thus, you know that what you're customizing is exactly what you're going to get. And I just want to show you the code real quick. So the code is fairly simple, but there's one major difference, and that when we come down to the print widget, if we look at this, this is the code for the print widget. There's no URL being defined for the print service. It's going to read the URL directly from my portal instance, and I have an ArcGIS Online organization that I'm using for the portal. So that's where it's getting connected to the ArcGIS Online print service, and that's how it's connecting to the custom templates that I've hosted in ArcGIS Online. And just to prove it, I'm going to come to Map Viewer, and I'm going to open up the print widget. I'm going to let it load, and I'm signed in as me. Oh, and there we go. I see the show print area. Now, this is one thing to let you know about in Map Viewer. The show print area is enabled by default. In using the JavaScript SDK in a standalone application, it's disabled by default, but it's a configurable property. You can customize the behavior in your standalone application. But if I come to template, again, I see all these cool organizational templates that I didn't get to see before. And these are the custom ones that someone from my organization uploaded and allowed me to use. So in closing, I know we're going long on time. There's a couple new things we added. We can print customized highlight options. And also we removed support for printing with a print service published from ArcMap. Moving forward, we're only going to support print services published from ArcGIS Pro. And of course, the Esri print service will still be available for you to use.
Awesome.
And with that,
Thank
I
you,
think I should hand it
Noah.
over to Emily.
Before we hand it to Emily, there are a couple questions.
Oh,
So the first one is where to create the templates. Is it in ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise?
that's a great question. So I should have made that more clear. So when you create the templates, you're defining them and creating them in ArcGIS Pro. So if you're used to printing services, you publish from Pro to ArcGIS Enterprise and consume from Enterprise. But now you can publish it in Pro and consume it in ArcGIS Online. But it's with Pro for creating the custom templates yourself.
Okay, and then, well, we got some love. Someone said major quality of life enhancements to printing. Well done. Love to see that. There's a question about drawing a box to define the printing area. Is that something that's on the roadmap?
Yes. So when I showed you the show print area, the static box, we are playing around with more dynamic ways to add that to the map, to add that to the application. So that's on the roadmap, but we don't have a timeline or any assurances for that yet. But we are looking at that.
All right. Is there any way to print with the pop-up?
Print with the pop-up, that's a great question. With the current print service, the answer is no. However, there are alternative strategies to printing with the pop-up, and there's an older blog by Ryan Libed that he wrote. It's a slightly custom workflow, but I can find the link to that blog and share it because it's still relevant, and that would allow you to print the pop-ups, but it wouldn't be using our print service. So it would not be available to do with the custom templates. That would be the
Okay,
drawback.
sounds good. And then a couple labeling questions. Is there any way to label along the borders of polygons like you showed with the polylines?
Oh, not currently, not out of the box. I'm sure you could find a clever way to do it with offsets, but we are more polygon label positions are on the roadmap, but I don't know an easy way out of the box today.
Okay, and then how configurable is the scaling of the labels that you showed earlier? Another question.
It's fairly configurable because you can input, when you use code, you can input whatever values that you want, so you can get the exact levels. But I would caution you to, if you want real precision with your labels, make sure that when you're doing your testing, you're looking at the correct scale and view of the application so that you're really seeing the view that you expect when you set those values. So just be real careful when you're going through, but you have a lot of flexibility with the scaling of labels.
Great. All right. Thanks, Noah. There's some other questions in the chat, but we can respond to those in the chat for the sake of time.
Awesome.
As you can tell, 4.30 has been a huge release. So to wrap us up with some more features that were added to 4.30, I'll hand it over to Emily.
Hi everyone, I'm Emily and I'll share some quick but exciting updates about visualization, oriented imagery, and widgets. So I'm sharing my screen. Is it good? Okay, so first of all, we added the reference size theme in Smart Mapping. So this theme is called reference size because the theme displays dot size proportionally based on data value in relation to a reference size. And this cartographic style is also known as Werman dots. So this themes can visualize density very effectively. So the point is like in the outer shape of each of here is circle. In the outer shape, it's the max value, and the solid inner shape conveys the percentage. And for areas that doesn't have any data, it will be blank. And in this example, we're combining reference size with color. You can also combine with other visual variables. So in this example, like how full each circle is indicates the percentage of forested land in that area, and the color is the population in that area. So like the darker, the greener, it will be more forest, and the fuller the circle, meaning like there will be more forest area, more population, and the full area will, and the fuller circle will mean there will be more forested land. The good thing is you can use this size very easily programmatically. Just as any smart mapping, you can call this reference size theme from the from the size render creator. Also, you can create the scene interactively in Map Viewer. So it is under count and amount size and select reference size. Besides circle and polygon, hexagon we're showing here, we also have diamond shape and flat polygons. So we create a variety of options for you. The second update I'd like to share is oriented imagery is coming to 3D. So the oriented imagery layers can be published with the Z value, allowing you to visualize and interact with them in the 3D scene. So like here, you can zoom in and the coverage area will update. You can select another viewpoint and it will update accordingly. So if we zoom in, we can zoom in and pan around and maybe say hi. Yeah, so this is really powerful. And it's super easy to use. All we need to do is add the oriented imagery layer to the scene that we're seeing. And we can use the oriented imagery viewer as well if needed. The last update I'd like to share is the expand widget. This is a quality of life change. So we improved the mobile experience for expand. So what we're seeing is if we make the window we're seeing smaller, meaning it's a mobile view, the widgets that contained in the expand will automatically update. And this will handle responsively, and this is enabled by default. You can also set it with the new placement property. We're seeing these new behaviors because we are using calset components for under expand now. You can expect to see the same behavior in expand widget, the classic way, and also in component. Here I have a quick demo with component. And when you slide it in, like it will responsively be, the legend will responsibly be docked. It's because the new expand widget behavior. That's all from me.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. Thank you everyone for hanging with us for so long. We are excited to talk about all of these new features for 4.30. I think Julie has one final announcement before we wrap up.
Yep, I just wanted to share this blog for anybody attending our user conference, which is happening next week. This blog outlines all the things going on for developers. I think we're going to post it in the chat for you guys to easily find it. But just a quick walkthrough, it lists out all the sessions that are focused for developers. In the very beginning of it, it also talks about our developer day, which is a full day dedicated to different topics for developers. For example, the morning session is kind of like a plenary style overview of like our most exciting updates. So we'll be kind of going through a broad spectrum of all the key things we want to show off. And then a handful of sessions we felt were pretty important for anybody attending the user conference doing development. Other things you can find is like the information on the other days of sessions, the showcase, all of the JavaScript SDK staff attending user conference. Almost everybody will be at the showcase throughout the week, so you can talk with us and we can talk about your projects and answer your questions and demo everything going on. There's also a social on Wednesday to meet and greet everybody. So definitely check out this blog if you're going to the user conference. There's also, I put together this custom agenda, which we'll also post this in the chat. If you're using the UC agenda, you can check this out, and it has all of the JavaScript SDK sessions listed in it, so you can easily find them. And with that, that's it. Anne, back to you.
All right. Thank you, Julie. And thank you all of you for all of your fantastic questions. We really enjoy getting to engage with you and show off all the hard work we've been doing for the release. Hopefully we'll see you at UC. But if not, hopefully we'll see you at the next live stream. If you like these types of events, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube or subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one. But yeah, that's it. Thank you, everyone. Hope to see you soon. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Hey, everyone.